Farewell My Turnabout is often considered to be one of the best cases in Ace Attorney, and personally what I would consider to be the best standalone Ace Attorney case ever. And for good reason. Everyone who has played the case will say that this is one of the most exhilarating and stressful couple of hours one can ever experience in any form of media. A case chock full of twists and turns, all accumulating into one roller coaster of a case that never disappoints. It's a case that really demonstrates what makes Ace Attorney so great. A compelling story and mystery that continues to intrigue us despite its limited form of storytelling. And a lot of that is due to the characters. Characters like Phoenix, Maya, Edgeworth, and plenty of other main characters which we grew to adore. However, these aren't actually the characters we are talking about. Because the best of cases really comes down to its side characters. The case-specific characters that make the case, well, a case.
What?
Now sure, these characters can be all over the place, but that's what makes each case so special. Why each case has their special charm to them, and what makes us even bother with a case in the first place. Simply put, these side characters are what makes or breaks cases. But especially in Farewell My Turnabout, they are more than just essential. With all aspects of this case centering around one particular character, Adrian Andrews. A character that by all means should be just an afterthought. But instead, they crafted her a story that goes even beyond her as a character. Because everything, the overall story, the themes, the main character's journeys, all revolves around her story. She is quite literally the catalyst behind why this is one of the best cases in the series. And her involvement within this case elevates it to insurmountable levels that are difficult to replicate. But how? How is this seemingly inconsequential character layered with this much depth? Well, for that, we must start at the very beginning. Because the best of Ace Attorney cases have something special that shakes up the Ace Attorney standard. And immediately in Farewell, what starts off as a pretty standard introduction escalates into Maya getting kidnapped and only stipulation for her safe return being a not guilty verdict for the Nickel Samurai, Madame Guard. And already the case sets the table with this insanely stressful situation, genuinely fearing the safety of Maya and doing everything we possibly can to save her. And those emotions of panic and distress become the driving force for the entire case. But among all of these differences, this will also be the first time we're forced into defending a client instead of having the choice to defend them. We're just stuck with this airhead who's just as surreal as the rest of our clients from the past. So nothing is really different, right? It's just another client that we have to defend from another massive predicament. And that's the thing. Despite all the differences, the case still seemingly falls back onto the same Ace Attorney tropes. This isn't even the first time we have to save Maya, was this the fourth time up to this point? And that familiar sensation makes us subconsciously feel some sense of security despite all the pressure. I mean, we're kinda on the clock here, so naturally we have to resort back to our basic tendencies to approach this stressful situation. And thus, we fall back onto our two main assumptions. 1. Our client must be innocent. And 2. Someone else must be the culprit. And it's those expectations that, in the long run, makes this case so compelling. But we'll get back to that later. But this segues into us meeting for the first time Adrian Andrews, Madame Guard's manager. And by now, we know the usual spiel. And so based on everything we know, Adrian immediately becomes our number one suspect. She has the motive, the opportunity, the callous attitude, even a gimmick that can be spun into one of those over-the-top breakdowns. And so she has to be the killer. Or at least, that's our theory going into the first trial. But despite all the circumstantial evidence, everything still feels off about it. It's almost too simple even. And as the investigation continues, the more we learn about Adrian Andrews and her past, and the more we start to question that original theory. She has already gone through so much grief and turmoil. Someone who is clearly lost and depressed from how much she has suffered. Someone in desperate need of help. Leading to the most important question, is Adrian really guilty? Or is she just a victim by circumstance? And why are we trusting a goddamn assassin about our client's innocence? But all those justifiable questions are thrown out the window because remember, Maya's life is still on the line. And so the only thing we can even do is trust our intuition. Which is where the trial takes us next. The court presumption that Adrian Andrews is our culprit. And over the course of the trial, our theory only grows stronger with each passing testimony. And as we bring her up to the stand, we were this close to convicting her for murder. Yet, that same guttural feeling continues to persist. No matter how guilty she may seem, something is still preventing you from pulling the trigger. What was it? Was it just out of pity? Or was it actually a feeling of sympathy? But it can't be. She has to be the killer, right? We had every opportunity to end this nightmare for us right then and there. To finally save Maya like we were determined to do from the very beginning. But instead, we hold our fire and lower the gun, sparing her life. And it's as simple as this. We got to see Adrian as a human. Someone who is vulnerable, someone with their back against a wall, someone who needs help. And here we are, perpetuating her turmoil by accusing her for murder. And it's such a meaningful moment because in any other situation, Adrian will be the exact person we will be defending as a client. Someone with the world against them, believing they committed a crime they didn't do. Yet despite how messy and convoluted the situation may be, we stick by them in solidarity. But instead, we realize the brutal irony that Phoenix has succumbed to. That he has become the very thing he's despised. What he has berated Edward and Franziska for in the past. Going against his own morals for his own personal desires, even if the motive was still trying to save someone he loves. But it also reflects onto us as the player. Remember those pitfalls I mentioned earlier? Now because this is majorly a visual novel, those assumptions are basically our only form of gameplay strategy. Ace Attorney is, at the end of the day, a video game. No matter how attached we are to the story, we're still going to be disconnected from the actual characters and what they are feeling. And it simply results in this. Guilty verdict equals game over, so guilty verdicts are bad. And when you put it like that, it's eerily similar to someone like Franziska and her ideology we've criticized so heavily. And so this dissection of Phoenix's arc is mutually the same for us, the player, forcing us to think more in depth about our own consequences with our decisions. And even though this is a very simple linear story structure, the ability for the story to still make you reflect upon these seemingly simple decisions is just evidence of incredible writing. But going back to the trial, we see that it's not just Phoenix affected by the situation. As later, in an attempt to try and squeeze out the full truth, Edward resorts to the now infamous interrogation of Adrian Andrews. Him putting her in past trauma like her suicide attempt for the entire courtroom to see and basically saying to her face,
"You should kill yourself now!"
just to uncover everything she has been hiding up till this point. And even though this was Edward's brutal last resort to try and save Adrian's life, it's an absolutely cold moment from him that sends shivers down your spine. And something even Phoenix recognizes as going too far. But it's those moments a tragic character like Adrian Andrews is able to cause. Because her story really develops into a character dissection of all three of the major characters. Franziska's aggressive desire for victory that she doesn't give Adrian the benefit of the doubt of her innocence. Edward's callous and dark pursuit for the entire truth as an overcorrection of his past mistakes. And Phoenix who, no matter how pure he may seem, is still chained by his emotions that he tries to do way more than he's feasibly capable of achieving. And thus resulting in situations like this where he's this close to throwing Adrian to the wolves to save someone he cares about more. Once again, it's a very stressful situation. But stressful situations often bring out a person's biggest flaws. And that goes for these characters as well. You feel that exact tension that all of these characters are going through. You see the consequences that each one of them causes. And you get the moral implications that a simple rule like you must defend your client to the very end doesn't fulfill. And even though Adrian's a clear victim of their actions, in a way, all three of these characters are actually trying to save her. Phoenix recognizing his error and doing everything to try and fix that mistake. Franziska filling that void Celeste left in her death. And Edward with his tough love, if you can even call it that. It just illustrates this fascinating dynamic between these three. Three very different and extreme ideologies, all converging onto very similar goals and faults. But all that depth and complexity that I just analyzed about this case would have been entirely lost if we simply didn't care about Adrian. She is, at the end of the day, just another side character. Do we really care about her more than someone like Maya? She's a character that you have to write perfectly, and that's exactly what they managed to accomplish. But the further we investigate, the deeper we fall down this rabbit hole, learning more of the deplorable things Matt and Juan have done to both Adrian and her beloved mentor Celeste impacts. Terrible things just to get back at one another, which inevitably led to Celeste's suicide, and even afterwards, her suicide being used as a weapon against the other. It's just an awful story that genuinely makes you furious. Two hot-headed monsters only caring about their reputations and fueling some stupid rivalry. And at the center of this storm is Adrian, the only true victim in this tragic tale. All from these two men lost in their pursuit for fame and not those in the middle of their petty feuds. Almost just like our three leads right now. But finally, we have now uncovered the full extent of the horrendous shit Matt has committed to stay on top. A full-on egotistical sociopathic murderer. And he's our client we are forced to defend. Alright, let's recap here. We have a lot of elements to consider. Maya has been kidnapped, and in order to save her, we need a not guilty verdict for Matt. But that would then result in Adrian being convicted for murder and letting Matt, a murderer, walk free. But saving Adrian would then result in Maya's death, putting one more victim upon Matt's spree. No matter what, there will still be blood on your hands. But that's the genius behind this case. It drags you into this lose-lose situation that forces you to question your own morals. Questions as you prepare for the inevitable difficult decision up ahead of you. It makes you feel helpless knowing the only true outcome is losing. All of this stress because we're willing to try and save Adrian. A character we would fight for even if it means losing one of the most important people we know. And it's such a great arc, going from nothing being more important than saving Maya, to now being willing to risk her safety just to protect someone else caught in the same predicament. But most importantly, the second trial is a chance for all three of our main characters to bring some right to what they have wronged, and finally break free of past woes to bring down Matt on guard. And with that, I'll just leave it at that. Because honestly, I can't do any more justice to this final trial by just describing it. It's a case that you only get the true perspective by experiencing it yourself. Heck, I still get the same adrenaline rush even after like the 15th time I played this case. It's a plot, a conflict, a drama that keeps you on the edge of your seat every single time. And for like the nth time I'm saying this in the script, it's all because of the characterization of Adrian. So why? Why am I bringing all of this up? Why am I hyper-analyzing Adrian Andrews so heavily? Well, because I feel like a lot of stories often forget how important creating a good side character is to a story. A lot of the time they just feel like afterthoughts for the sake of world building, plot convenience, or character motivation.
Holy shit, it's Danny.
But that lack of effort in these side and supporting characters can really break the entire story. There's simply no motivation or investment to the plot and really the world in general when the side characters are dull, one-dimensional, or half-baked. Without that reason behind the hero's journey, there's just very little substance to the journey in the first place. Why should I care about the hero saving X, Y, or Z character when I don't care about them whatsoever? The side characters are the glue to any story. What drives a protagonist to overcome an obstacle, what brings a protagonist to strive for change, and what consequences must they face with their decisions. Building a strong core of supporting characters makes your world feel complex, compelling, and alive. Something that makes us care about the story. And this is especially necessary in video games, a medium where we can directly interact with the world but with little to no consequence. And because of that lack of consequence, it's hard to feel like there's any repercussions to our actions besides potentially losing the game. Like here in Ace Attorney, We were conditioned to have that basic black and white perspective of innocent and guilty, pushing us to have that objective of not guilty to win the game. But having a character like Adrian, winning truly isn't winning, when your win results in another's death. Adrian gives a third dimension to a two-dimensional perspective, that she isn't just an obstacle in the way of us saving Maya, instead someone we should care about as well, care about her story, her character, and her arc. She is the key that connects the narrative and the gameplay together, and the conflict between these two elements makes the tension feel so genuine for us, especially when you are no longer solving the case but rather determining the fates of two people you care for. It makes us think, it makes us feel, and it makes us change. She may be just a side character, she may be a character we may never see in any future games ever, but her story and her character arc makes her one of the most interesting and complex characters in all of Ace Attorney, and a character that has revolutionized the franchise forever. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, I just want to say once again, thank you so much for sticking with me up to this point. This video was way more stressful than I anticipated, dealing with college, life, everything, not to mention all the crashing and corrupting and restarting, and my computer breaking on me while making this video, which makes 2 or 3 video essays causing that fun times, but I stuck through it. And mostly because of how much support everyone's given me and how much they said they loved these videos that I've made, and it really means a lot making this hobby, talking about this game that's impacted me so much and I love talking about. So yeah, it means a lot having all of the support, so I can't thank you enough. If you have any questions or comments or counterpoints or whatever, just leave them in the comments. I love talking about the series, so I will try my best to respond to as many comments and maybe even do a follow-up video if I have anything else to talk about. But yeah, I'm just glad of how this video turned out, and I'm glad that so many people love what I make, and I'm gonna keep going making better videos every single time I make one. So please share this video as much as you can, comment, interact with it. This was way too much stress under me. You don't know how much, but thank you so much. Have a great day.